camera never knew the real man in black, and neither did the record buyers hypnotized by that boom chicka beat. Johnny Cash told the world he walked the line, but the real track beneath his boots led through dirt roads patrolled by bootleggers, neon corridors run by outfit bosses, and prison yards where coded melodies bounced off razor wire. This isn't folklore feathered up by barstool braggers. This is the raw underside the estate still tries to bury, the version where Cash doubles as courier, mediator, and velvet-voiced firewall for America's dirtiest money. Start where the cotton fields end and the county line grows teeth. Dirtiest, Arkansas looked holy in daylight, but at dusk the air tasted of sour mash and gasoline. Local gossip held that Ray Cash, Johnny's iron-fisted father, ferried moonshine in the same pickup that hauled his son to church. When revenuers showed up, Ray claimed he was delivering tools. Sheriffs who knew better pocketed a hush envelope and waved the truck through. Johnny, perched on flour sacks, learned early that silence fed a family faster than sermonizing. Fast forward to 1951. Uncle Sam shipped 20-year-old Cash to Landsberg, West Germany, where he intercepted Soviet Morse at dawn and hustled black market luxuries by night. Cigarettes, cognac, even amphetamine packets pilfered from army medics changed hands behind bombed-out churches. The buyers? Sicilian intermediaries who name-dropped Charles Lucky Luciano the way teens name-dropped movie stars. Cash never wrote those exchanges into his letters home, but the bankroll financed a Tennessee apartment and a ring for Vivian without a single line of credit. Memphis in 1954 was a carnival of hopeful crooners and quiet threats. The Dixie Mafia controlled jukeboxes, club bookings, and union dues. Every singer paid insurance to Carl Country Douglas, a thick-necked fixer who sat in the doorway of Beale Street's Flamingo Cafe, flicking a stiletto open and shut. Sam Phillips cut Johnny's first single at Sun, but whispered that the real audition happened down the block, where Douglas decided which performers left the stage unbruised. Cash passed the test, partly because his baritone melted room temperature, partly because he handed Douglas an envelope said to contain both cash and a phone number answered by someone in Vicksburg known only as Miss Kitty. By the time Cash's songs cracked the charts, speed pills rattled inside his guitar like ominous maracas. He called them energy beans, supplied by the same Dixie runners who trucked stolen slot machines to Mississippi roadhouses. But the game changed in 1960 when Vegas beckoned. The Sands, the Stardust, the Flamingo, casinos sprouting like sins in the desert, needed a country novelty to balance the Rat Pack's tuxedo glamour. Frank Lefty Rosenthal, secret manager of the Stardust and accountant to the Chicago outfit, comped Cash's blackjack losses on opening night, then comped them again, until loyalty felt like a signed contract. Cash soon traveled with a custom Martin case fitted with a false bottom. Roadies joked it was for manuscripts. Airport security, charmed by the grin and the biblical baritone, never asked why the case weighed 30 pounds when empty of gear. On one flight from McCarran to O'Hare, a stewardess overheard Rosenthal thanking Cash for delivering the paperwork. Paperwork allegedly meant skim ledgers bound for a Chicago basement where accountants worked under armed guard. The ledgers arrived intact. The stewardess received lifetime show tickets and, according to rumor, a down payment on a house far above her pay grade. The facade cracked on October 4, 1965, outside El Paso. Border agents opened Cash's luggage and found 1,100 tablets, Dexedrine and Equinil, stuffed into socks. The official report called them tranquilizers and pep tablets, but the agents initially suspected China dust. Cash paid a minor fine and caught the next flight home. Newspapers mocked the lenient sentence, yet nobody asked why the county prosecutor suddenly withdrew felony charges. Court clerks hinted at late-night calls from Little Rock attorneys who sounded more like enforcers than barristers. While critics scolded his pill habit, Cash turned those same critics into props. He volunteered to sing at Folsom and San Quentin, prisons crawling with lifers who owed allegiance to Dixie and Italian crews on the outside. Guards searched amplifiers, but not the glue-sealed envelopes Cash handed to inmates selected as choir assistants. Former San Quentin inmate Virgil Caine later claimed those envelopes contained betting slips and coded orders for smuggling contraband. Caine aired the allegation in a taped interview that vanished after one local broadcast. Cash's rapport with outlaws reached the Oval Office in 1972 when President Nixon invited him to croon for political donors. On the surface, it was patriotism. Beneath it lurked laundering. Cash's publishing company, House of Cash, deposited royalty streams through a two-room bank in Benton, Arkansas. An institution later shuttered after examiners uncovered deposits that dwarfed local payroll by millions. Investigators traced the money back to Las Vegas, holding companies fronting for the outfit. 2 state auditors assigned to the case died in a car fire before delivering testimony. Their file disappeared in transit. By the mid-70s, Cash tried detox at Betty Ford, but arrived with a bodyguard who filtered every call. Detox logs later released under FOIA show the guard accepted 7 collect calls from an Illinois number registered to a vending machine supplier with known outfit ties. Nurses overheard Cash whisper, "I'll settle the markers when I'm out." He left rehab early, citing creative urgency, and soon recorded "Flesh and Blood," a song critics heard as redemption but insiders decoded as an apology to unseen creditors. The legend suggests Cash cleaned up, but addiction wasn't the only leash. Federal file number PR547, partially declassified in 1999, details 312 pages of surveillance. Plain tales, tapped payphones, parking lot photos of Cash embracing men whose faces the Bureau blacked out. One memo reads, "Subject transported package from Chicago midway to Burbank. Suspect narcotics inside guitar case. Surveillance discontinued after directive from upper management to abort." Agents speculated a political favor had crushed the probe. Through it all, June Carter stood on stage beside her husband wearing that practiced church choir smile. She once joked that marrying Johnny meant marrying every stray dog sniffing around Nashville. Offstage, she begged him to sever the mob cord. He answered by buying property outside Hendersonville on land previously held in a straw deal by Memphis bookmaker James "Snaps" Wilson. Deeds traced years later show the acreage transferred for $1. Cash's outreach to prisoners looked saintly, but the ledger tells another verse. Between 1968 and 1976, his touring company billed state correctional budgets exactly $1,000 less than the unmarked donations that flowed the same week from those prisons into a Nashville talent management firm co-owned by Wilson's cousin. Paper trails formed a perfect figure 8, performance fee out, consulting donation in. When a Tennessee reporter tried to diagram the loop, editors pulled the story, citing community risk. The Mafia, however, respects debt schedules more than family. By 1978, Chicago bosses reportedly demanded new revenue after Vegas skim tightening. Cash headlined a string of hastily arranged Canadian dates promoted by Maple Leaf Entertainment, a shell company later busted for laundering gambling proceeds through concert merch. Fans complained their t-shirts never arrived, but somebody collected $750,000 in bills from box office windows and vanished across the Detroit River. Retaliation stalked him in subtle ways. Burned out tour buses, sabotaged soundboards, anonymous threats growled over CB radios during long drives. Cash's crew nicknamed one persistent stranger the Night Howler, a voice that recited graveyard addresses before disappearing in static. The singer responded by taping a hunting knife to his microphone stand and increasing the volume of "God's Gonna Cut You Down" during sound checks as if daring the Night Howler to come closer. When Hollywood optioned Cash's life story in 1981, studio lawyers demanded liability waivers concerning organized crime insinuations. Cash refused. The deal died. Screenplays shredded. A month later, producer Ted Warwick woke to find his swimming pool dyed ink black and a dead crow nailed to the diving board. Warwick never again pursued the project. The crow became local legend, a mute witness to negotiations best forgotten. Nationwide, newspapers shifted to new scandals. Politicians, televangelists, corporate raiders. Cash faded from front pages, yet the web he spun remained taut. A retired U.S. Marshal speaking off record in 1990 claimed Cash once brokered a truce between the Pagans Motorcycle Club and Dixie Gun Runners by arranging a midnight jam session at a Kentucky roadhouse. "They left hugging," the Marshal laughed, but the gear truck carried more than amps on the way out. Old age mellowed the growl but sharpened the myth. In 1993, Cash appeared on a TV tribute wearing a grin that looked almost relieved. Observers thought he'd finally outrun every demon. 2 weeks later, a small fire gutted his Hendersonville archives, destroying tour ledgers from the 60s and photographs rumored to show mob capos backstage. The fire marshal blamed faulty wiring. Skeptics blamed well-timed gasoline. Johnny Cash died in 2003, officially of diabetic complications. The tributes focused on his prison outreach, his faith, his baritone that echoed like oak barrels in an empty church. Obituaries skipped over the Vegas markers still rumored unpaid, the pill pipeline disguised as hymnals, the prison envelopes that never resurfaced. Yet certain funerals spoke louder than the eulogies. Among floral displays sat an unmarked wreath of blood-red roses, shaped like a guitar pick, its ribbon stamped with a single black note. Today, tourists queue at the Johnny Cash Museum in Nashville, snapping photos of Grammy statues and prison set lists, unaware that beneath the floorboards once lay a safe thick with canceled checks signed by initials, not names. Curators insist the safe held only love letters. Locksmith records tell of 2 midnight visits requested by curators too rattled to sign receipts. Historians still spar over how deep Cash's alliances ran. Some say he was merely a charismatic addict whose generosity got exploited by crooks with better lawyers. Others argue he played outlaw and executor, balancing art and extortion like chords in a minor key. The truth probably sleeps somewhere inside those still redacted FBI pages, where black ink hides flight manifests, telephone numbers, and the passenger list from that McCarran to O'Hare midnight run. What remains undeniable is the pattern. Wherever the Dixie or Chicago crews needed clean cultural capital, Cash arrived with a grin, a guitar, and an alibi stitched from gospel verses. He could bless a casino skim simply by eating prime rib in the showroom, calm a prison riot by crooning a hymn, or distract press from a laundering probe with a deftly timed relapse story. Every favor deepened the ledger. Every ledger entry tightened the rope until even redemption songs sounded like coded apologies. Perhaps that's why Hurt, his haunting late-career cover, cuts so deep. Fans hear regret for broken vows, but certain ears detect a farewell memo to men in smoky back rooms. Debts acknowledged, accounts closing. The music video's fleeting shot of a shattered wine goblet feels less accidental and more confessional. A final nod to shattered markers and spilt secrets. The tale you just heard is stitched from hushed interviews, scorched court files, and crumbs the Bureau accidentally left unshredded. Doubters will demand fingerprints, but the Mafia perfected glove work long before Johnny strummed his first chord. What survives are echoes. A stewardess's silence, a producer's dyed pool, a burned ledger, a spade-shaped wreath. Add them together, and the melody grows inescapable. So the next time Ring of Fire blares from a barroom jukebox, picture the unseen circles around the flame, bootleggers on dusty back roads, Sicilian brokers swapping cigarettes for secrets, Vegas accountants smoothing casino skim numbers with gospel lyrics, prison shot callers humming along while decoding the next shipment. Johnny Cash didn't just sing to outlaws, he sang for them, shielded them, maybe even lorded over them in rumbling 4/4 time. History classes will keep the sanitized chorus, farm boy turned icon, redeemed by love and faith. But behind every platinum record hangs a darker plaque engraved in disappearances, unexplained car fires, and missing interview tapes. Cash once bragged he'd been everywhere, man. The map he traced just happens to include territories the Justice Department still tiptoes around. That map didn't die with him. It just folded quietly into a guitar case that weighed too much for its size, the same case outfit fixers once trusted more than a steel safe. Legend says the man in black wore dark clothes to mourn the downtrodden. Maybe he also dressed that way because black absorbs light, obscuring outlines, making it harder for watchful eyes to see what he carried from stage to back office. Call it myth if it helps you sleep, but remember, myths are merely facts dressed in shadow, and nobody wore shadow quite like Johnny Cash. Outfit fixers called it the vault on strings, a mobile safe that sailed through checkpoints on the back of celebrity charm. Years after Cash passed, the case resurfaced at a 2007 Scottsdale auction. Bidders expected stage clothes, lawyers yanked the lot when an anonymous Nevada corporation paid hush money. Insiders swear the false panel hid 86 travelers' checks from the defunct Benton Bank, co-signed by a numbers runner tied to Giancana. The checks vanished into a private vault, gag orders followed, and the auctioneer refuses press to this day. Studio chatter from the American recording sessions contains another breadcrumb. Cash murmurs an address in Red Hook, Brooklyn, then adds, "Tell Tony the freight's covered." Played backward, engineers caught a second line. Use the church van Thursday. That same week, NYPD intercepted a refrigerated truck with bootleg pills and unregistered pistols disguised as produce. Cash's bus refueled 2 miles away, timeline never probed. Family quarrels add smoke. After his death, a lawsuit erupted over a locked cabinet marked routing. Court filings mention flight logs with odd layovers, Memphis to Havana via Toronto, and a Polaroid of Cash shaking hands with a man wearing a 70s NYPD lapel pin outside a bakery, later tied to the Lucchese clan. The judge sealed the evidence. The road manager retired overseas. Mob generosity surfaced in stranger places. When Cash's neglected campfire sparked a California blaze that torched condor habitat, fines melted after a single call from a Sacramento lobbyist whose slot machine patents served the very casinos Cash once packed. Environmentalists still wonder how the penalty shrank to pocket change. Archivists cataloging his Bible collection found coded marginalia, J12R9C1. A cryptanalyst proposed they matched county jail designations and dates when drug arrests inexplicably dipped. The TV crew funding that research received abrupt cease and desist letters from a New Jersey firm known for defending Genovese higher-ups. Episode scrapped. A 2019 Freedom of Information release uncovered a blurred appendix from file number PR-547. Agents staked out a Hendersonville marina in 1984, watching Cash board a houseboat with 3 unknowns labeled A1 through A3. Laughter, a zipped bag, guitar chords. Then Washington ordered all units to stand down. The field memo underlined protected twice. Tie the threads, bootleg whiskey, Vegas skim, Red Hook freight, secret marina meetings, and a darker portrait emerges. A maestro of covert logistics cloaked in hymns and outlaw anthems, trafficking not just in pills but in influence, brokering quiet deals while the public hummed along. That beloved guitar twang? Maybe it isn't only oak and steel, maybe it's the echo of hidden compartments and unpaid markers still vibrating long after the crowd goes home. Undeniably. Decades of hush haven't erased every clue. In 2024, a Nashville archivist digitizing reel-to-reel rehearsal tapes heard Cash pause mid-song to answer a ringing phone. The tape captures only his side. "I told you Benton is closed. Use the Gulfport branch, same password." Gulfport's tiny bank had been shuttered since the 80s for laundering bingo profits tied to the Dixie Mafia. 3 days after the archivist posted the snippet online, copyright lawyers demanded removal. His channel vanished in hours, leaving only cached thumbnails and a short comment. He knew too much. The archivist moved to an undisclosed address, claiming break-ins where nothing was stolen except external hard drives. For every verse the industry plays at half volume, another verse waits in the tape hiss. Someday someone will up the gain, and Cash's final confession, whatever form it takes, will thunder louder than any encore. But echoes do more than linger, they mutate. 20 years from now, a server may purge a forgotten hard drive, spitting up rehearsal room chatter that places cash at a motel where 3 union pension reps disappeared. 30 years from now, a tourism drone might scan the bottom of Kentucky Lake and stumble across a rust-edged lockbox etched with the initials JRC, its hinges welded shut by silt and time. Investigators will crack it open expecting love letters, only to find ledgers inked in squeaking ballpoint, detailing freight runs that match missing DEA case numbers. A forensic accountant will notice withdrawals timed to unsolved arson fires in 2 states. Somewhere, a retired roadie will swear he ferried that very box under a stage riser, paid in crisp hundreds, smelling of cigar smoke. Reporters will chase the story until unfamiliar lawyers appear, waving non-disclosure agreements like scythes. If history proves anything, the trail will vanish again, buried under fresh coats of rumor and convenient archive floods. Proof the man in black tuned his life to a far darker key.